Assigning NTFS permissions does not make a folder accessible across the network. To do that, you have to share the folder. To share a folder, we just go to the properties and there is a sharing tab. And if we go to advanced sharing, there's a permissions button. And that will let us choose from 3 permissions. The permissions are read. Now, the easiest way to think of these permissions is to compare them to the NTFS permissions. This is the equivalent of read and execute. They just don't make these as granular. But if you have an executable in a file, like a script or an exe file, then if you assign the share read permission, it will allow that to actually run. Change is equal to NTFS modify. So you could go all the way up to delete. I don't know why they just didn't call it modify. That would have made too much sense, I suppose. Full control is actually full control. Meaning, if I have full control at the share level, it is possible for me to change permissions for other users. So just like on the NTFS, you can manage permissions. With the share permissions, let's say I have my sales managers group again, and my user Bob is just a member of the sales managers group. Now on the NTFS side, sales managers has the modify allow permission. So we know this group has access, but when you share the folder, we have to assign permissions as well. Well, right now, I share this folder and the sales managers has read allow. The way share permissions work, when you combine a share plus NTFS permission, you actually get the lowest permission. Now we know read is really equal to read and execute, but with that, you cannot create a new file. You cannot delete any content. So Bob would actually be restricted to that read share permission, which we know is really, I'm going to say R and E for read and execute. But that is the capability Bob would have. So no chance he could delete any content or anything like that. Now, it sounds wrong, but when you share a folder, what you almost always do is actually assign full control allow. The reason you do that, because I know the lowest of the 2 permissions will be the effective permission. If I assign NTFS permissions correctly, so if Bob truly needs modify, I can just assign the allow modify. Then if I assign the full control, when they get compared, modify is less than full control. So in that example, the effective permission for Bob would now be modify. It really takes management out of this if you assign the full control permission. You just have to make sure that you properly have defined the NTFS permission. Now, an interesting fact, up until Server 2008, Microsoft assigned the Everyone group full control by default, and they said, don't worry about the share permission, make sure you set your NTFS permissions correctly. The problem that inevitably led to is people messed up the NTFS permissions, and they assigned permissions that were too high. The share side was already at full control, so people were able to access content they shouldn't or delete content. So in 2008, Microsoft reversed that decision and said, when you share a folder, the default permission is going to be the Everyone group has read, and they suggest that you elevate it to full control, but onus is now on you to actually do that, so we can't turn around and blame Microsoft if we misassign these permissions. So remember, when you combine one NTFS permission with another NTFS permission, it is the highest permission. When you combine a share permission with an NTFS, it is the lowest. Now, if you are a member of 2 groups that have share permission, say there's also the sales users group, although it's not in this diagram, and the sales users group has read and we elevate sales managers to full control. When you combine one share permission plus another share, it is the highest. So the way I think of it, on this side, on the share, if you have multiple permissions that apply, highest is the winner. On the NTFS side, you are a member of multiple groups, so multiple permissions apply, the highest wins. When you compare the two, the share and NTFS, only then does the lowest permission win and become the effective permission.